Hello, and welcome to the Poetry Pcast. Patricia here, with lots of poetry for you today, amongst other things. How the devil are you? I'm still on my holes as I put this together, but I thought I'd pop into my little mobile studio and record this for you before I head down to the beach and top up my tan. Have a plate of boccheronis in vinegar, and maybe, if I've done enough exercise today, a small plate of fries to go with them. I might share them with my husband. But probably not. Anyway, like I said, I have poetry to share with you. I asked you to write on the topic of death, and you know what? I was not disappointed. There's some great poetry on here today. Thank you to everyone who wrote for us, and of course, my lovely editing team who read them all and made the choices. It was Matt Defibau's final topic with us as an editor, so a shout out to thank Matt for all the voluntary hours he's put in to help me get episodes and journals out to you. Cheers, Matt. Which takes me to another topic. All the editing team are volunteers, even me. As you know, I do have members and you do buy me coffees, but all that money goes to keeping the show on the road and maybe, just maybe, the odd donut from the baker down the road. I think I've told you before how we choose poems, but it won't hurt to tell you again, given the direction this conversation is going. When you send me your submission, they go anonymously into a spreadsheet and are allocated on a first-come, first-served way to different editors. So the editor doesn't know who's written the poem, and you will not be assigned a particular editor every time. Your editor will change. The editor you're assigned to makes his or her choice or choices, and if they need help, they request the whole team to run their eyes over it. I read every submission that comes in from the spreadsheet, so I don't know who the submission is from until the final decision is made. Long story short, four eyes always look over your submission, sometimes more, and until a decision is taken, no one has any idea who the submission is from. If you're on the topic editing team, in this case, Robert, Liam, Lev, Matt, and Vandana, you cannot submit unless there's an editor's section, but that's clear in the journal. Other editors of other forms, like Linda, who edits the video prompt, Richard, our copy editor, and Shane, who edits Haibun, are free to submit, and their submissions are read just like yours. If your work is rejected, it's not the opinion of a single editor. At least two editors have agreed, often more, because this is a journal that wants to encourage you to write, but also to write high-quality work. We reject anywhere between 25 and 50% of work sent to us, not because we have a target, but because we want a certain standard. Your work may be rejected because for that topic you've not sent us your best work. You may not have read the criteria properly, or perhaps there are similar submissions and sadly another has been deemed a higher standard. There are all sorts of reasons you may receive a rejection. You hate getting your work rejected. We hate sending out rejections. But this is important. We do it with a heavy heart. It's not a nice thing to have to do, but we want to show absolute respect to all poets who submit and reply to everyone. We'd like the same respect in return. It always surprises me when poets send us a snotty reply to rejections. Up to now, I've just ignored them, but from now on, I'm going to ignore them and blacklist the poet. I hope you'll understand and support my thinking on this. Now, while I'm venting, there's another thing I want to tell you, and I'm also telling you it with a heavy heart. Poetry P will not be nominating to the Touchstones this year. I want to be honest with you. It's not because we got no poems onto the list this year, although, judges, what were you thinking? No, it's about transparency and fairness. I've written to Bruce Feingold, who coordinates the whole touchtone thing, to tell him my thoughts, but I need to explain my thoughts to you, as you might be upset that I've taken this step. Fear not, though, I will be nominating to the pushcart, and I'm planning something a little bit special for those poems and Hyben, of course, that I would have nominated for the touchstone. So why not nominate to the Haiku Foundation's Touchstone Awards? This year, of the 4 individual poems chosen as award winners, one poet was the wife of a judge. I'm sorry, but that's not on. No reflection on the quality of the work, but if your wife is in the running, you should have no place in the judging panel. And it should be made clear to all concerned that you had no part in the judging. Subsequent to the decision on the award winners, discussion was shut down on the Foundation's blog. I've no idea what was said. I only saw one comment, and I thought it made a fair point. It was subsequently removed. And maybe things got out of hand after that. I just don't know. Because, like I said, comments were removed. I feel strongly that I do not want to work with an organisation that allows this conflict of interests to pass without open discussion. I hope you'll continue to send Poetry P work. The journal is now well established, and I believe the editing team helped me to achieve a journal that has quality haiku and senryu. Haiku and senryu that is well crafted by poets who understand what the form is. While I'm having a little gripe, should it not be totally transparent that Red Moon Press is an organisation founded by Jim Cation, who is the chair and founder of the Haiku Foundation? The Haiku Foundation that awards Touchstone Awards. This year, half of the books in the Distinguished Book and Honourable Mentions in the Book Awards, that's all the awards and honourable mentions, came from Red Moon Press. I'm going to just leave that there. Okay, rant over. Write to me. Tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. I don't mind having that discussion. I just felt someone had to put their head above the parapet and say, no, this is not fair. Now, you might remember that in podcast 17 of this series, the 8th series, I had a bit of a dig at the Haiku Society of America. Honestly, I'm not planning on making this an ongoing thing. I was expecting a bit of a backlash, but I have to say, a couple of members of the board got in touch and said they would raise the issues I was talking about with the board. No further news to report, but I'll tell you when I have. So let's get on with some lovely, wonderful poetry. Because today I've haiku, senryu, and tanka for you. They'll all be in the journal, which I'm aiming to have out at the end of May 2025, along with more bonus content, including a renku. A renku! Hooray! To give you a taste of what's in the journal, have a listen to this poetry today. And, of course, to the judges' nominations. You'll find out who got the nod as the judge's choice and which poems are the honourable mentions in the journal. And just so you know, the judges do not know who wrote the poems until they've made their choice. First nomination is from Samantha. Samantha, you have such a lovely name. I really don't want to mess it up, although I probably have many times as I've read out your poetry. Do you think you could pronounce it for us? And if you don't mind, tell us where it comes from, because names fascinate me.
Thank you. My name is Samantha Pardo Irigoyen. Pardo is my maiden name that is of Cuban origin, and then Irigoyen is my married name that has Basque origins.
Oh, say, right. Very interesting indeed. So both, I guess, Spanish flavor
Yes,
to
yes,
them. Yeah,
yes.
wonderful. Thank you very much. I will endeavor to get it right in future. But do you know, when I've asked the question, I always get so nervous. It takes me a few takes on in my editing suite to get them right. Or wrong, as the case may be. Anyway, Samantha, thank you so much. Would you please tell us which of the poems you've chosen from the submissions and tell us why it stood out for you?
Of course. So the haiku that I chose is rotting plums, packing her canning jars for recycling. Rotting plums, packing her canning jars for recycling. Upon reading and rereading all the submissions, I was continuously drawn to this haiku. In the first line, the word rotting was an excellent choice as a companion to plums. Plums, among other things, can symbolize perseverance. Juxtaposing that symbolism with the word rotting caught my attention. The location of the rotting plums is not yet addressed, but I immediately imagine this tree known to withstand the harsh realities of winter, as its legacy easily rots beneath it. Depth is added further in the second line, someone packing multiple canning jars. That someone is packing another person's belongings, implying a stage of moving in life, a transition. Additionally, one who cans delicate fruit is one who plans for the future. They understood time. They could bend to the demands of canning, balancing the various jars, temperature setups, and breakdowns. They understood impermanence. Additionally, plum trees are found to represent hope and strength. Was the canner trying to bottle up those traits too? The last line was striking in that it incorporated the word recycling, which I instantly received as reincarnation. Both similarly undergo a death and rebirth. In this case, the canning jars will be reborn again as something else, transitioning from this life to their next. This haiku expertly touches on the theme of death while also exploring life and rebirth, each unfolding as you progress. An excellent reminder that even though death ends one journey, it starts another.
Thanks, Samantha. And of course, that poem was by Sam Blair, who was submitting to us for the first time. So it's very interesting to see a first time submitter being chosen or being nominated. And you know, Samantha, what I love about these judging panels is the opportunity to hear another person's take on a poem. And as so often happens, you brought an added depth to this poem for me. I saw someone packing up the cans for recycling as the person who would normally do it, but they'd passed away. And
Right.
that might indeed be the case. But you've brought another level to it for me, and I thank you very much for that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Samantha. Late fall. In my garden, I hunt for a second magpie. Late fall. In my garden, I hunt for a second magpie. Adele Evershed. Three ravens sit on the telegraph pole. Wintry dusk. Three ravens sit on the telegraph pole. Wintry dusk. Anne Curran. A raven's call. This rough sea finally calm. A raven's call. This rough sea finally calm. Brian Rickett. Evening birdsong. Threading through bluebells gone to seed. Evening birdsong. Threading through bluebells gone to seed. Ben Oliver. A burst of thrush song, crawling through the meadow, a dying mouse. A burst of thrush song, crawling through the meadow, a dying mouse. Bruce H. Feingold. Last melody. I leave a request for the songbird. Last melody. I leave a request for the songbird. Joanna Ashwell. And that got me thinking, Joanna, if I was in the same boat, what bird would I make a request of? It's got to be a toss-up for me between a robin, a wren, or a thrush. What do you think? Which bird song would you choose? Nothing at all makes the pigeons take flight. Nothing to see. Nothing at all makes the pigeons take flight. Nothing to see. Mark Gilbert. Night vigil. Heavy silence broken by an owl's hoot. Night vigil. Heavy silence broken by an owl's hoot. Paul Callis. Calling card. A raven's feather drifts to the ground. Calling card. A raven's feather drifts to the ground. Susan Andrews. Two ravens looking at each other. Cemetery visit. Two ravens looking at each other. Cemetery visit. Ram Chandran. Lonesome evening. A cuckoo call to the west, and no other. Lonesome evening. A cuckoo call to the west, and no other. Rhea Collins. Reading tea leaves, the last swallow. Reading tea leaves, the last swallow. Steve Barr. New moon. Behind me all this time a growing shadow. New moon. Behind me all this time a growing shadow. Anne Fox. Eventually my life, but not my watch and the river. Eventually my life, but not my watch and the river. Anthony Lusardi. Hourglass sand. After many turnings, time runs faster. How long before we will be running too? Hourglass sand. After many turnings, time runs faster. How long before we will be running too? Anya. Fading light. Unable to fathom hydrangeas. Fading light. Unable to fathom hydrangeas. Arvinder Kaur. Eulogy. The fallen leaves of a magnolia. Eulogy. The fallen leaves of a magnolia. Melissa Dennison. The stillness as I approach the speed of light. The stillness as I approach the speed of light. Joshua St. Clair. Half hitch. The current undoes my skiff. Half hitch. The current undoes my skiff. Barbara Sabol. Regrets. I already know how this ends. Regrets. I already know how this ends. Linda L. Ludwig. Chemo ward. Every channel tuned into the war. Chemo ward. Every channel tuned into the war. Ron Scully. Now, our next judge is Bill Fay, a chap who's been sending poetry off and on to us from our very early days. And it's really nice to virtually meet you, Bill, and put a voice and a face to the name. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
The poem I've selected is by Robin Rich, Double Rainbow Over the Chapel, Welsh Ancestors. Double rainbow over the chapel, Welsh ancestors. Of the many poems I reviewed, this one stood out for its uniqueness in conveying a tone of hope and promise. There were no references to winter, sunsets, or shadows. The subtlety of this poem lies in the tone created to address its subject. The poem is a fine example of haiku senryu hybrid. Its vivid imagery and compact nature only add to its elegance. In just 7 words, the poet creates a layered commentary on family, rebirth, hope, and promise. The poet paints in the first 2 lines a beautiful visual image that places the reader squarely and immediately in the scene. The 3rd line's Welsh gives the reader more context in both place and time, while the final word, ancestors, anchors the reader back to the intent of the poem. How does the poem turn the subject of death into a poem of family, rebirth, hope, and promise? The first image is the rainbow, a traditional image of hope. As both rain and sun are required to produce the rainbow, it also an image of renewal. The next key image is the chapel, which speaks to Christian traditions of hope, comfort, and the afterlife. The word Welsh in the 3rd line reveals a layered mythological connection between the image of the rainbow and the image of the chapel. In Welsh mythology, a rainbow is the path that spirits use to cross into heaven and the path that they use to communicate with the living. It is a traditional Celtic emblem of spirituality. This pre-Christian and traditional Christian imagery is on full and beautiful display in just 3 words: rainbow, chapel, and Welsh. Yet there are more layers. Why a double rainbow? The key is probably the last word of the poem, ancestors. In the double rainbow, there is an implication of self-generation, as there is in the generation of ancestors, families, or clans. A wonderful poem in its images, compactness, and simple elegance. Its subtle interweaving of layered mythology through its strong, concrete images is handled skillfully. But the poem's optimistic tone on the subject of death is what makes it a standout.
Thank you, Bill. Do you know, I instinctively knew that the rainbow was something special, something magical. Who doesn't? But I didn't know that it was a traditional Celtic emblem of spirituality, which is unforgivable given my Irish roots. And I wondered if it has the same meaning in Irish mythology as in Welsh. I'm sure someone's going to write in and let me know. Thank you for that, Bill. Now, would you do us the honour of reading one of your poems, one of the ones that you had accepted for death poetry? The other, of course, will be in the journal out very soon.
Thank you. Unburdened, a dusting of snow in Buddha's hands. Unburdened, a dusting of snow in Buddha's hands.
Slow drain. Canes around the house. Then rollator. Then slow drain. Canes around the house. Then rollator. Then Krista Pandy. After the wake, a dishcloth moves in circles. After the wake, a dishcloth moves in circles. Charles Lawler. Open casket. I insist on going barefoot with a plum peddy. Open casket. I insist on going barefoot with a plum peddy. Colette Kern. Colette, that poem reminds me of one of my favourites by Jenny Joseph, which goes, "When I am old, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals, and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth." There's more to it, but if you want to read it, I'll put the link in the show notes. Thanks, Colette. Thanks for your poem and for reminding me about Morning by Jenny Joseph. In the same vein, a poem by Rowan Beckett Minor. Lay me to rest in the black lace dress, white magnolias. Lay me to rest in the black lace dress, white magnolias. Hard at work on a bumblebee, fire ants. Hard at work on a bumblebee, fire ants. Christopher Pays. Moonlit seeps into the greenhouse. He leaves a note beneath the seed trays. Moonlit seeps into the greenhouse. He leaves a note beneath the seed trays. C.X. Turner. "70 years of learning to breathe. I'm not ready to unlearn the scent of jasmine. 70 years of learning to breathe. I'm not ready to unlearn the scent of jasmine." Cynthia Anderson. Such a climb up a rough switchback trail to reach this summit. My legs have given out, but oh, the things I saw. Such a climb up a rough switchback trail to reach this summit. My legs have given out, but oh, the things I saw. Cynthia Bale. Rabbit holes. Falling headlong into another story. Rabbit holes. Falling headlong into another story. Deborah Burke Henderson. Deborah, did you mean to take us straight to Alice in Wonderland with that one? I found that such a scary story when I was a kid. Bury me by the pickleball court. sneaks ivory white. Bury me by the pickleball court, sneaks ivory white. Doris Lynch. A kite within the western skies, up so high. A kite within the western skies, up so high. Ivanka Ettinger. Spoon by spoon, feeding my patient. A setting sun. Spoon by spoon, feeding my patient. A setting sun. Toyette Van Doe. Out of verbs, my life sentence. Period. Out of verbs, my life sentence. Period. Elliot Diamond. Paddles up, one last bend in my river. Paddles up, one last bend in my river. Eric Lohman. Short stroll, a delicate memory in yonder cloud. Short stroll, a delicate memory in yonder cloud. Eve Castle. Sea breeze, an open-winged carcass leans on the wind. Sea breeze, an open-winged carcass leans on the wind. Gareth Nurden. Winter wind, the factory sinks into its past. Winter wind, the factory sinks into its past. Jacob D. Salzer. Midnight, the floorboards creaking a name. Midnight, the floorboards creaking a name. Jamie Wimberley. Cotton clouds drifting over mountains, I climb the other side. Cotton clouds drifting over mountains, I climb the other side. Jan Stretch. Sunrise at my back, solo hike. Sunrise at my back, solo hike. Jenny Matten. The dying soldier a few lifetimes later reborn as me. The dying soldier a few lifetimes later reborn as me. Jenny Shepherd. Weeping willow traces the river's course downstream. Weeping willow traces the river's course downstream. Jill Mura. Favourite stories the dog-eared pages told us. Favourite stories the dog-eared pages told us. June Rowe. Water notes dissolve into mud cracks. Will my last breath become wind? Water notes dissolve into mud cracks. Will my last breath become wind? Carla Ramesh. Dropping seeds to find my way back. Forget-me-nots. Dropping seeds to find my way back. Forget-me-nots. Cathabella Wilson. Casting off on calm waters, my course unknown. Casting off on calm waters, my course unknown. Kim Clue. My footsteps hardly make a sound in the snow. I wonder how I'll be remembered. My footsteps hardly make a sound in the snow. I wonder how I'll be remembered. Kimberly Kuchar. Keeping aside the wood pieces from a fallen tree, I recount the days left to sleep over the pier. Keeping aside the wood pieces from a fallen tree, I recount the days left to sleep over the pier. Lakshmi Iyer. Feeding the dog. What will become of my bones when I'm gone? Feeding the dog. What will become of my bones when I'm gone? Mark Brimble. Sunset swim out into silhouettes. Sunset swim out into silhouettes. Matthew Coretti. Westerly wind, the thin glass rectangles of the wind chimes. Westerly wind, the thin glass rectangles of the wind chimes. Mimi Ahern. Studying how hearts fail slowly, I feel my own. Studying how hearts fail slowly, I feel my own. Morgan Davis. Neon dusk, the shadowed lungs of a spruce. Neon dusk, the shadowed lungs of a spruce. Colin Sandberg. Ink dries on half a word. Winter wind. Ink dries on half a word. Winter wind. Nina Singh. Autumn morning. Incense becomes the sky. Autumn morning. Incense becomes the sky. Nicholas Klasansky. Grave visit. A smatter of snow this morning. Grave visit. A smatter of snow this morning. Noel King. Mountain finale. A share of sinew for the sky. Mountain finale. A share of sinew for the sky. Peter Jastrzemski. Childless. The western sky calls me unnoticed. Childless. The western sky calls me unnoticed. Reed Hepworth. Garden pond. The old turtles float away from me. Garden pond. The old turtles float away from me. Richard L. Matter. Volunteers trying to identify lost grave sites. Ragweed pushes through a pile of broken stones. Volunteers trying to identify lost grave sites. Ragweed pushes through a pile of broken stones. Richard Tice. In the conch shell's voice, my swan song. In the conch shell's voice, my swan song. Robert Kingston. Sunset Drive, heading straight for the arms of my dashboard Jesus. Sunset Drive, heading straight for the arms of my dashboard Jesus. Michael Henry Lee. Getting ready for the afterlife. Mayflies. Getting ready for the afterlife. Mayflies. Mona Beddy. The last innings on the village green. Evening cricket. The last innings on the village green. Evening cricket. Paul Chapman. Leafless branches. The season of thanksgiving. Leafless branches. The season of thanksgiving. Randy Brooks. Mountain fog. Nothing to pack for this journey. Mountain fog. Nothing to pack for this journey. Ravi Kiran. Unshared news. Without saying why, I hug them harder. Unshared news. Without saying why, I hug them harder. Rob McKinnon. Another star sinks into the sea, the fisherman's empty net. Another star sinks into the sea, the fisherman's empty net. Robert Whitmer. Passed over by the gleaners, at sundown the melon silently slips from its vine. Passed over by the gleaners, at sundown the melon silently slips from its vine. Sally Bigger. Cinders drifting between two silent trees. What lies just beyond? Cinders drifting between two silent trees. What lies just beyond? Sandip Chauhan. Year's end. Inside my shadow, a late butterfly. Year's end. Inside my shadow, a late butterfly. Sarah Parish. Blue porch light. Still you're not home. Blue porch light. Still you're not home. Scott Wigerman. Everything I am, scudding clouds. Everything I am, scudding clouds. Shrini. Lonely or alone? First star. Lonely or alone? First star. Terry L. French. O mountain spirits, make mine a double in that ethereal bar. O mountain spirits, make mine a double in that ethereal bar. Tracy Davidson. Last but not least, another poet from the Celtic part of the world, Tony Williams, based in Scotland. Tony, welcome to the podcast. Now, do you know if the rainbow has a spiritual meaning in Scottish mythology?
Short answer, no.
Well, I have a bit of research to do. I should have done it before now. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Tony. And tell us, which of the poems did you choose and why?
Okay, thank you. After a fun read of many outstanding haiku, I settled on a poem written by Matt Snyder. Winter sun, the bird's shadow lost in the trees. Winter sun, the bird's shadow lost in the trees. What a peaceful way to go. To take on the form of a bird and for my shadow to slip into the shadow of a tree at the end of a long life. This simple, subtle haiku has brevity, fragment and phrase, an attractive shape, and includes the season word, winter, which sets the stage nicely. I picture here a blackbird, its shadow merging with a gnarly old tree's shadow. And that would be enough for me. I could meditate on the simplicity of these images and be content. But what truly elevates this haiku for me is the second apostrophe, artfully placed in the final word, trees. I had this perhaps fanciful thought that this apostrophe, perched between the E and the S, could represent, figuratively at least, the bird itself, singing as the sun sets and the dark of the night melds shadows together.
Thanks, Tony. It was the apostrophe on trees that had me coming back to this poem time and again. And I was really fascinated on your take. So I'd not gone there. It was really very interesting. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Now, do you think you could read one of your poems from the Death
Yes, thank you.
submissions?
Okay. Beach walk, we too disappear into har. Beach walk, we too disappear into har.
Thank you very much. I did want to hear you read that last word because I didn't think I could do it justice. And you sounded like a Viking, so definitely I couldn't have done it any justice. But I believe it means something like a cold sea mist or fog coming off the North Sea. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Off the east coast of Scotland or the northeast of England.
Brilliant. I love getting a new word, and definitely, as I said, it was much better to hear you reading it than me. So thank you for that. And thank you to Tony and all our lovely judges this time. It's time to turn off the recording and debate. That's the bit you're not going to hear. But you will find out who collected the judge's choice and who were the honourable mentions when you read the journal out soon. Richard is reading the copy as we speak. Thank you to my editing team for doing all the work to create this week's podcast. Thank you to you if you submitted, whether you were rejected or whether you feature here today. Thank you to you for coming along and listening to us. I appreciate it. Truly, I do. Do join us next week for more poetry, but until then, keep writing. I do plan to have these poems and more in the next journal out at the end of May. But if I'm honest with you, I'm probably going to be a bit late because of my holidays. Anyway, I'll do my best. And if you're on the mailing list, you'll get to know as soon as I've got the journal available. And of course, if you're an ISA or a Busan member, the journal will drop into your email box. And one last reminder, do sign up for the mailing if you're not on it, because you might miss out on something very special. Ciao!